Sweet. Well, we are back here with the Weiss Method. My name is Wolf. For those who don't know, I'm here with Elizabeth Hamill, who is a Weiss Method practitioner. And we're here with episode 3 of the Weiss Method, discussing the addiction cycle and how it works today. For those of you who haven't seen our prior 2 episodes, in the first episode, we introduced the Weiss Method, talked a little bit about its background, what it is, and how Elizabeth here got involved. In episode 2, we spoke more about how energy works in the body specifically and how this applies to the Weiss Method. And in here today for episode 3, we're talking about the addiction cycle and how that works and how it applies to the Weiss Method. So let's jump right in. Elizabeth, if you want to talk a little bit about the addiction cycle specifically and what that is, I think that'd be a great place to start.
Sure, that is the place to start in this episode. So last episode, as you just mentioned, we looked at how energy works in the body as a platform really to now open up the unwanted habits and addictive cycle and how that works inside of the body. So firstly, to say that the same systems that are part of our natural human design basically get hijacked in this addictive cycle. And they get hijacked into serving a substance abuse problem or an unwanted habit, unwanted compulsive habit like nail biting or something of that sort. So it really is our same system. It's not like it gets its own special system. It utilizes the existing systems already at play. And really hijack is a good word for it. So the harmful cycle gets triggered by a multitude of factors and can be individual to each person. You know, why does one person get addicted to something and another person doesn't? And they may, do the same thing. We're not going to really cover that, but I'm just notating it because it does happen. So these triggers, and we touched on this in the first episode, in that you asked me what did I think was the, a big part of why somebody gets addicted and or has unwanted habits that are difficult to break. And I named isolation as one of the factors. And there are many other factors, but that is a very broad ranging one that it affects most people in this situation. So just to give a couple of examples of those, how that can turn up in one person and look very different in another. So, it could be that a person is, let's take 2 young people. One has many friends, really socially active and everything looks really good on the outside. And, but because maybe there's, say, some issues at home that have affected this person deeply, say they're one parent is an alcoholic or something, and that can be a big stressor and can be also a trigger. And say that person just starts sneaking a sip of alcohol, when they start to feel really stressed because they pick that behavior up from their parents. And, they do that repetitively on a repetitive basis. That can start the cycle right then and there. It may not be that that person turns into a full-fledged alcoholic for many years, but that's the seed that gets it started. Okay, so that's one example. Another one is that a person who looks like a complete loner, and in other words, they don't really have very many friends, and they keep to themselves, and they basically can cut themselves off and isolate themselves from others, and they may find escape in something like vaping, or something of that nature. So I just point those two examples out that it looks different on every single person. And some people hide it well, others don't, and some people don't even try to hide it. But the basic point here is that even though it can look different on the outside, what's going on in the inside is basically the same. That these these systems in our design that are natural to, and everybody's got the same blueprint. They get hijacked in different ways, and so that's why the Weiss method can work on different have the similar treatment for many different ailments. So yeah, that's the first point I wanted to make. So we touched on in the second episode the 5 different centers, and one we focused in on there was the what we call the moving center. And again, centers are energy vortexes in our body, and this energy vortex is or gyroscope is another word for it, where it's just that there's a concentration of energy of a specific kind, and this actually sits with the organ of the stomach. And we talked about that in the second episode to do with the stomach. And basically, when we do something repetitively, our systems automatically assume that we want to continually perform that action when that trigger is present. So something like, you open up the car door, you slide behind the wheel of the car. You don't have to think about, putting your foot on the brake, turning the key or pressing the button and putting it into gear. It just all happens. Your mind is someplace else, and that's perfectly fine. But that is a function of the moving center and the stomach, and how that system actually plays out in our daily life. And it's designed to do that. It's designed to hold our habits that and our skill sets, so that we don't have to get up every morning and remember how to walk.
Absolutely.
Can you
Yep.
imagine? So yeah, and as I said before, a perfectly healthy system can get hijacked by, it's like, for a smoker, that trigger may be sitting down in the morning with that first cup of coffee and lighting up that cigarette, that first cigarette of the day. That is a whole scenario triggered, and it's very difficult to break in the long run. And that sits in the stomach. There's other systems at play as well. We talked about ringleaders, and there are 3 of them. And we're going to talk about all 3. So we just touched back on the stomach again. And the next ringleader in this view is how the how the addictive cycle works is the brain. Now, the brain is an amazing organ. I mean, it can do so many things, and it does do so many things on our behalf. It's really smart. And the thing about it is, it's a little bit too smart for its own good, and our own good, actually, because it likes to really be in control. It thinks because it's up here that everything else below it is in service to it. Like, our legs are just there so they can carry that brain around to where it wants to go. It's really kind of like that. And the problem is that one of the aspects of the brain is that it loves to fly high. It's the part of us that goes, yeah, I want to go on that ride at the fair. It loves to do new things. It likes to, do the parachuting. It likes to drive fast. It likes danger because it excites it. Now, it doesn't really like repetition. That's what the stomach's deal is. Um, it likes new things and it gets bored very easily. And when it gets bored, then a problem arises because then, it's going to try and liven things up. And you can see where a substance abuse problem and the brain going, no, 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 I want more of that. I want more of that now, really comes in. And it is the urger of the system to keep that addiction going. Um, there's that. So the stomach loves repetition and will prompt you into the same thing when triggered, but the brain loves to fly high. Um, and not only that, it's really, really tricky. So you can decide, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And it's like you got it all planned out. And somehow something gets derailed and you find yourself, I don't know, you know, playing video games or something. It's like, wait, that wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah.
Well, that's the brain just sort of inserting itself, and the stomach. They do work in cahoots, uh, and they're like, no, we really need a break now. We've been working really hard. We really need a break, and so it's it's a whole scenario. And once you sort of can step outside of the and look and see what's going on, it's really amazing that we are not in the driver's seat of our lives most of the time. And it's either the brain or the stomach. Now, the third ringleader in all of this is the blood. Okay. So the blood is, it's kind of like the postal service because it is actually delivering on a metabolic basis, physical metabolic basis. It's delivering nutrients and sustenance to every single cell in the body, and it's then taking away waste. So it has contact with every single part of our body, and inside of that, it goes through obviously the brain and the stomach, and it gets instructions, and so it uh, receives those instructions, and it has a very magnetic quality to it, so it's easily printed. So it's a base level of where our habits are actually printed. Whereas the stomach is like, okay, yeah, we want to do that. We don't like, the stomach does not like surprises. It likes regularity. The brain loves surprises and loves to fly high. The blood holds it all together and does whatever the brain and the stomach tell it to do. And then the blood tells everybody else. So it's an amazing system if we have our purpose intact about what it is we want to do. However, it is when it gets hijacked, it's really tough to break. And that's why with many people an intervention is needed, and that intervention is something like the Weiss method. So those are the three ringleaders. So the great thing about the systems is we can reprint over them. That is the hope. Okay. Not all is lost. Although, for instance, I spoke about in the first episode, I was a cigarette smoker.
Yep.
And I know, and I am no longer a cigarette smoker. It's been over 10 years, and but I know if I picked up a cigarette again, I could very easily become a cigarette smoker again. So it's not that, if you because that's part of my system. It'll be with me the rest of my life.
Yep.
And so it's something that the blood holds as a print because of its magnetic quality, but it can be weakened. And
Mhm.
the way it gets weakened, it's really obvious, is that you don't use it. So it's just like a muscle. You don't use it, it weakens. Um, so you can overprint and basically put stronger prints in its place, which is really what we're going to talk about in episode 4, the next episode, to do with winning your life back, and really provide a few tools and whatnot that people can take up if they want to be in the driver's seat of their own life. So, see if there's anything else I need to add to this. Well, that's the bulk of it. I don't know. You have any questions for me, Wolf?
Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting understanding how those three different ringleaders play in the addictive cycle. And when you explain it like that, it's very obvious how one can be influenced and, really, if you're not in control of it and actively in control, can derail you and definitely get you down an addictive cycle and one of those rabbit holes. My question is so in understanding those different ringleaders, I know we're going to touch on this a lot in the next episode, but how does the Weiss method, in understanding how the addictive cycle works, how does the Weiss method go about treating those cycles specifically and breaking you out of that?
So, very simply put, and I've said this a few times in the other episodes already, which is what the Weiss method does is it cleans and rebalances things and puts things back to how they're meant to be. So it basically, that's it. And that's done at the energetic root cause level of things. So it's, via meridian lines to get into those organs with a light touch. If the person is present in the treatment room, or it can be done remotely, as we spoke about last. And it is an energetic cleaning and rebalancing of the systems, and then providing some tools for the person to institute after the treatment, so that they can assist in that redirection, and in not just a redirection, but in overprinting in those systems in a way. And it's not like you have to like put something in its place, but you do need to be in the driver's seat of your own life. That's what's crucial. So, I mean, the treatment itself is simple, and so it interrupts that cycle by cleaning and rebalancing. But then, the person needs to keep that up, by A, not doing the habit again, and B, deciding that what they want in their life, and then really instituting that. So
Absolutely. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people that have unwanted habits, the hardest thing for them, everyone's busy and going about their lives. The hardest thing is that interruption and changing that path and that cycle that they're on. If they can do that, it opens a lot of doors for them to really make a big change in their life. So,
absolutely. Well, that's well said. Yeah. That's why sometimes we just need a helping hand, to get out of the quagmire and, start again, and find our intactness. And yeah, that's generally how the Weiss method does it.
absolutely. Well, I know a lot of people are going to be excited to understand specifically, how the Weiss method is able to do that, but also how they're able to take back control of their own lives. And that's going to be our topic for next time in episode 4. Anything else that you want to touch on around the addictive cycle? I know we touched on a lot of stuff and there was a lot of depth in this episode.
I think that's really the gist of it. I can't think of anything else to be added at this point. Maybe after we end this episode, I will. But um, but I think that we're going to have a roundup episode 5, so that'll give us time to touch back on anything that we feel might need a little bit deepening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you to everyone who listened to episode 3. I hope you guys all learned something. I know I did a lot personally, and definitely stay tuned for episode 4. We'll be talking about taking back control of your life. Yep. This is great. Episode 3, and we'll see you guys next week for episode 4.
Thanks, Wolf.
Yep. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye-bye.